Lindsay. Welcome back to my channel. Today we're going to talk about, the fact that I sold a book. Oh my gosh, I have been sitting on this secret for so long, you guys. I haven't even given any hints, not even little inklings on Instagram or anything like that. But do you know how long? Do you know how long I've been sitting on this and how hard it was? 9 months. 9 months I've been sitting on the secret. I could have had a whole child in this time, but I'll go into all of that later. I think we should just start from the beginning. I don't even know how to film. I'm just so like, blah. Oh my gosh, but I should probably read you the announcement, right? Tiffany Cologne as Scholastic has acquired in an exclusive submission Bitter Bones by Lindsay Puckett, an upper middle grade novel exploring disability through body horror. Pitched as Wednesday Addams meets American Girl Dolls, the book follows Clay, a boy with too many bones, as he races to find his missing mother, a haunted doll maker, before her cult-like following or her creations get to her first, though the road might also be paved with his own bones. Publication is set for fall 2025. Samantha Fabien at Root Literary, Sold World, English rights. I thought in this video that we would kind of go over the history of Bitter Bones, like its inception, how I worked on it, how I brainstormed it, the process of it, and then, finally getting the deal and stuff. So going way back to the summer of 2022, The Glass Witch, my debut novel, was about to come out, and I had just finished working on The Odds, which was my follow-up novel, and I needed to start thinking about what option I was going to give to Scholastic. So in my contract with The Glass Witch and The Odds, I had this clause that basically said my next middle grade novel, Scholastic gets to see like 60 days before any other publisher gets to see it, and they get to decide if they want to buy it. And then if they pass, I can take it wide and shop it around elsewhere. And I had an idea for this novel that I was going to try to give to them. It was actually my first brainstorming iteration of The Odds. What happened was when I was brainstorming that, it kind of took two directions, and I started to split and get two different types of books. One that became what I published, and the other one was more of like a high fantasy adventure heist book. I think I even mentioned it briefly on the channel. I was calling it like Sob or Secret Organization book, and I was all gung-ho for making that my option, and I was gonna work on it. I wanted to keep working on my YA thriller that I'm calling Project Pyro, and just kind of let that idea simmer for a little bit until I figured out, all of the details. 2022 was also the year that I really started getting into reading horror. And here's the thing, I'm such a big chicken. Like, I can't even watch horror movies because my imagination is just too active. Like, it's so bad. I'll watch a horror movie and I just won't sleep for months. Like, sidebar, there was this time when I watched The Woman in Black with Daniel Radcliffe. I watched that about the woman who kills children or whatever in the night, and I swear for years I could not get up and pee in the middle of the night because I was so scared the woman would just be like, behind the bathroom curtain or something. And it's so stupid, so I never mentioned it to anybody. And then one day I told Brian that the movie scarred me for life, and I was just so scared, and he was like, babe, the Woman in Black only kills children. You're not a child. You would have been fine. And I was like, anyways, I don't watch horror movies, and I just thought I couldn't read horror books because they would scare me as well. But I always liked creepy books when I was a kid, and when I actually first started writing when I was around 12, the first thing that I started with was horror short stories. I was like, you know what, I'm gonna start reading horror. Loved it. Loved it. There's something about humanity that horror says that no other genre does. It really can get into the nitty gritty, goopy, dark basement closet of the human mind, and it can say things and do things that other genres can't. And I think that there is something very therapeutic about horror, and something very deeply human about horror. Like, people are always wondering about the thing that goes bump in the night, and it just feels like a deeply human experience. I don't know. So anyways, I fell in love with horror, and then one night I was in the bathtub and the idea just hit me. I was like, oh my gosh, I want to write a book with XYZ. I didn't have all the pieces yet, but I knew that it was going to be a middle grade novel, and that I wanted my main character to be a boy because I had never written from a boy before. And I mean, the character just came male. So I was like, sure, let's go with it. And this will be a nice, fun challenge. I also knew that the main character was going to be disabled, and I knew how the disability of this child was going to tie into the twist of the book. But the main thing that came to me that really solidified, oh yeah, this is an idea, I am running wild with this, is that I combined those things with my love of the reclusive creator artist of XYZ. Well, hold on, how do I say this? Okay, I wrote it down. Infamous spooky creator slash artist of blank is reclusive slash goes missing. I love that trope. There are so many books nowadays that are doing that, especially in horror. One of my favorites that does this is Night Film by Marisha Pessel. This is about a horror movie director, and I was just like, oh my gosh, I want to do something like that. I want to do a horror media of some type, and I want the creator to be like infamous and reclusive and mysterious, and like people are obsessed with her but they don't know anything about her or where she is or what's going, like what happened to her. And that is how I got the idea for the situation surrounding my main character Clay and his mother. One thing that I've been really loving in books recently is this thing that I'm seeing in multiple different genres, where you're taking a media of some sort and you're making it seem like it should exist in our world. Like it is so well fleshed out and it feels so real that like I should be able to find one of these movies online, right? I should be able to watch Evelyn Hugo's movies or listen to Daisy Jones and the Six's albums. Like these things feel like they should exist in our real world. And I had to brainstorm what kind of media I wanted to do, because like I don't know movies well enough or TV shows. I don't know video games. I don't know like a lot of things. I was like trying to focus on, you know, the whole old saying of like write what you know. And so I'm thinking of like, okay, in my life, what am I good at, or what do I know a lot about, or what am I passionate about? And then the idea of dolls just clicked. It made so much sense to go this route because like, I don't know, lots of people have a fear of dolls. I don't personally get it. Like I feel like all the time, like if my dolls came to life, like they would love me because I spend so much money on like buying them clothes and like accessories and things like that. But like a lot of people have a fear of dolls, and I was like, oh, that'd be perfect for a horror story, right? American Girl doll in particular was my bread and butter of being a child. I just loved how deep the world was and how each character had their own like little tiny accessories and like accoutrement, and they had a book that went with them, and they just felt real. And so when I was playing with them, I was like, oh, they're like, you know, real people. As I got older, I got into different kinds. I feel like in like 3rd grade, brats were huge. Brats were my whole life. I totally played with them as if they were a famous girl band and were like constantly touring my neighborhood, putting on shows. It was me singing, but it was my dolls like pretending, and I was just like, oh, like cheetah girls. And then my next doll love was BJDs, or ball jointed dolls. They're pretty dang expensive. They're collector dolls, and what I really loved about them is that most people who got them like were writers. I remember being on like forums and stuff where people would write their doll stories and like tell photo stories. Like they would, it was almost like a graphic novel but with like pictures of their dolls like doing different things, and I was like, I just loved it. I just loved it. Anyways, I'm probably showing you a couple of my dolls that I have up on screen. Yeah, and quite a few of them are from stories that never will probably get published. I had my City of Bones / dystopian / X-Men story, the girls from that. Then I have this like Gemstone Witch series. It's like Game of Thrones-esque, but like paranormal. Most of these stories were like deeply 2010s coded. And then the only ones whose story I have plans to actually write is Rosalind. She is my little Victorian gal, and I do plan on writing her story. This is my Crimson Peak meets the Count of Monte Cristo. That's what I'm pitching it as. Anyways, I love these dolls, and the community around them was like so deeply entrenched, and so I was just like, oh, this is like rife for like really spooky happenings. So I decided that my thing that I was gonna make feel like it should be part of our world is this doll organization. It's going to be like American Girl doll, but spooky and creepy, like if Wednesday Addams was running the company, right? Every doll is made super uniquely, and there are like unexplainable things that happen around the dolls, and there are forums where people go to discuss, like, did your doll do this? Does your doll have this? Like, mine has this. Why doesn't yours have this? Why are they made differently? Why does it make this sound in the night? Like that kind of stuff. And then of course they all have creepy short story books that come with them that my main character's mother wrote. And I wanted to create this whole atmosphere around this. Like these dolls were banned. They couldn't be in toy stores. You couldn't find them online. You had to go to like back corner alleys and like have a butt ton of money to be able to buy one like on the black market. And then I wanted the idea that there were like people that were like obsessed with finding like, these dolls. Like they're really hard to get. So they like, I don't know, take it to like the next level of these dolls are special. These dolls have some kind of like dark magic, and I'm gonna find them all. And yeah, that's all I'm gonna say on that. And once I had that figured out and put it together with everything else, I was like, oh yeah, I'm writing this. Like I cannot not write it. So I wrote down my original ideas, but of course I was working on the odds, so I didn't have time to really get into it then, but I wrote everything down and kind of filed it away for later. And then when I had time, which was May 17th, 2023, I finally got time to start drafting. A few months into drafting, my agent hit me up and she was like, hey, just wondering about that option, if you had any ideas, like what you wanted to do with it, what we were planning on doing. We should probably turn in something soon, so that way, you know, if they buy it, like your book, there isn't a huge gap between the time your second and third book comes out, so just like let me know what you're thinking. And so I sent my idea to Samantha with the pitch, and I think I gave her a couple chapters to kind of like, you know, get the feel of what I was doing, and she got really excited about it, which was, you know, really exciting for me. And she's like, oh, we should try to sell this to Scholastic on proposal. Selling on proposal is when you don't have the entire book finished. You just send basically a query letter, a synopsis, and around the first 50 pages or so. I sent the first 50, the synopsis and the query, to Samantha on July 1st, and then we did a little bit of revisions on our own. And then by July 26th, that's when we sent it off to my editor, Tiffany at Scholastic. And then we got really good news. It was that Tiffany really liked it and she wanted to send it to acquisitions, and acquisitions is basically like the marketing meeting where everyone sits down and Tiffany pitches the book like, hey, I really love this, I think you should buy it, marketing team. And the marketing team looks it over, they read what they have, they look at whatever mystical numbers that decides if it's worth it or not. And so on September 21st, I got the offer that they did want to go ahead and acquire Bitter Bones. And so yay, I had sold a book. But there was like a lot of stuff going on behind the scenes that was kind of like making it more complicated. I had spoken in one of my latest videos about how the whole Barnes & Noble fiasco really negatively impacted me and my book sales and things like that. If you haven't watched that video, I would recommend go checking it out. But because of all of those things happening in that video, my sales weren't as great as originally projected. And because of that, my offer for Bitter Bones was a lot less than my offer for The Glass Witch and the Odds. And by offer, I mean the advance amount that the publisher pays you up front for your book. And you guys, I'm not gonna lie, like I'm always trying to be really transparent on this channel about everything. So I'm not gonna lie, there was a time there where I was like really disappointed. And in a way, it sounds silly because like you still got a book deal, you know what I mean? And like I can recognize that. But full transparency's sake, you still have emotions, you know what I mean? I had a 3-house auction with The Glass Witch when I sold it, and because it was an auction, I got paid a lot more because there was a bidding war, and it was great. And those types of things don't happen to everyone, and I was so lucky and I was so blessed and I was so like completely flabbergasted that that was my life and that this had all happened to me. But I think that because it did happen to me, that kind of became the standard of what I wanted the rest of my career to look like, and that's just not realistic. I was feeling a lot of feelings, and I was sad. I was sad because I was like, oh, Bitter Bones is gonna be like my best book yet, but my advance amount is so much lower, and I'm so sad about that. There was also like a lot of fear too, because it was like, okay, what are we gonna do different with Bitter Bones to make it work in the way that The Glass Witch and the Odds didn't? How are we going to adjust with this new Barnes & Noble policy or whatever to make the sales happen? And it's scary because nobody really knows what's happening with middle grade, and the publishers are trying to figure it out, but even they don't know. And because the publishers are still trying to figure out what to do about middle grade and what to put in the contract, you know, my agency didn't know what to accept in contracts or how to work on contracts, because there is no new boilerplate middle grade contract with how everything is changing so much. So it was just like, we were kind of figuring it out as we went along. There was like a lot of back and forth kind of talking. We did kind of talk about the book coming out in paperback first, or being a paperback only, and as far as I know, I think that's the direction that we're taking Bitter Bones, which is really exciting for me because it means it's going to be a cheaper book and it's going to be easier for kids to get their hands on, especially in the book fairs. It's funny because you can go into publishing and like be so prepared and like know all of the emotions you're going to have, and then the moment something happens to give you those emotions, you're like, how dare. And at the same time that I'm having all of this fear and anxiety and disappointment, I'm also just like happy. I'm still happy that like it's getting out there, and like kids that need it are gonna read it, and adults that want to revisit and recontextualize these moments with disability and being young, and you know, some of the other themes that I've got going on, like that they're gonna get to read it too. And also, you know, middle grade is kind of a mess right now, and publishers aren't acquiring so much. Like, so the fact that they even wanted to acquire another Bitter Bones, like to take another chance on me basically, and were willing to, you know, stick out their necks financially for another one of my books, you know, also made me feel really like grateful, like, oh my gosh, like it's happening again, like I get to do this again, you know what I mean? So there's a lot of like complex emotions with it. Yeah, I don't know. I hope I don't sound ungrateful. I don't feel like I'm ungrateful, but I just want to be real and tell you guys like how I was feeling, and I had very conflicting feelings. Now, like, you know, 8-9 months later, I'm just like thrilled to still be here. Like I'm still standing. Like I'm happy. I have those emotions. It feels more real now that I get to talk about it with you guys. So there is more happiness in that sense. Yeah, it doesn't feel so like doom and gloom all the time about like, you know, financial money situations, like whatever. I'm still getting paid, and I probably, you know, am paid more than some people are for their books. And so I'm just like, you know, shut up. You're happy to be here. And like I am so happy to be publishing another book, to give something to the world. Like it's gonna sound silly, but I swear I feel like I was put on this earth to write books. Like I just feel that in my bones more than anything else. I am sure of that thing. Like I am sure this is what I was meant to do. So being able to have the cooperation with a mega billion-dollar corporation to be able to be where I am now, and be able to have their backing and be able to do what I feel like is my life's purpose is like incredible. And now I just feel like I'm sounding silly, so we're gonna move on. So we accepted the offer on October 19th, and I didn't sign my contract until the 7th of June. And you're probably like, why? And I think it goes back to that whole idea of that there is no precedent for what to put in contracts now with middle grade, because like nobody knows what's happening. So I think that there was a lot of discussion probably on Scholastic's part, and then once they sent it over to my agency, discussion there, and then like a lot of back and forth, a lot of like trying to figure out what was best for me and what they could offer, and like all of that kind of stuff. Also, you know, like I'm not the shiny new debut anymore, so I probably got pushed a little bit down in the slush pile of like contracts. They probably outsource, like, you know, they have one outsource contracts person like for the whole of Scholastic, so that poor person was probably, you know, overworked and underpaid, you know what I mean? So that was why I think it took a whole fetus worth of time. And yeah, and then here we are. We finally got the contract signed, and I have a book coming out next fall, which is so cool. Right now I am working on what I consider like a third draft, but my drafts beforehand are just so sparse that it just like, only now does it feel like a book. I am working on putting in more voice so that the character pops, and making sure my atmosphere is there, and also trimming, because my first drafts are really underwritten, and then my second drafts are kind of overwritten because I'm trying to figure out like fill in all the places, and now I'm trying to like weed whack it down a little bit so we can just get to the main part of the story. I'm really pumped for this book. Like I think it's you know, it's doing something cool. Like I'm writing for like upper middle grade. Like I wouldn't consider either of my books like upper middle grade. I feel like in reality the Glass Witch feels pretty middle of the road. The Odds feels a little bit young to me, whereas what I planned for Bitter Bones is like my main character just turned 13. So I feel like I'm writing for a space that is kids who are just about to age out and start reading YA. This is kind of like a transition book. I'm really excited about that. I don't feel like I find enough of those. And I feel like that age group is so important. The disappearance of those stories from the market is just like terrible. Like I feel like that's why the preteen and teen early stages are just like so hard, because there's no media out there that kind of talks you through it and makes you feel less alone. So I'm hoping that you know, my book kind of helps there. Thank you all so much for being here on this wild journey, and for hanging out with me and just like supporting me through all the years of Authortube, and like getting book deals and stuff. Like gosh, it's just so wild. So wild. I think I'm gonna go. I actually have to go work on that draft that I'm supposed to be turning in. So I better go do that. But thank you guys so much for watching. Thank you for just sharing in your congratulations and your excitement and all that stuff. It's really amazing getting to share this with you guys. So I'm gonna go write so we can make this deadline so you can actually read it. And yeah. Thank you so much for watching. Don't forget to like and subscribe. And you can actually order my 2 other books. They're right here. You can't really see them as well, but The Glass Witch and The Odds, both of them are available. And I have links below if you want to purchase them. That would be amazing. Help a girl out. So, yep, I will leave you here and I will see you guys in the next one. Bye.